Good clap on this.
And we start again on a delayed response, but we've been missing for a couple of weeks. Had some IPL business to take care of, but Mumbai did the job for all of us. So we'll quickly move on back to the Premier League, and just as exciting as the IPL was this season, we have one of the most exciting Premier League seasons unfolding. And like the title race right now looks absolutely open. For the first time in a long time, there's like five, six teams that, I mean, I don't know. I personally feel like there's five, six teams that can really, really go the distance this season. So we have a list of them, and we'll start off with Liverpool. Obviously the favorites right now. I mean, I think City are betting favorites still, but I think consensus in the podcast at least is that Liverpool are favorites. So, what do the two Liverpool fans make of the most recent game? Was obviously the City game. Quite an interesting game. I want to know what you guys make of that game, and then obviously talk about like what you think of Liverpool's last couple of games since we haven't spoken since the Villa game.
I don't know if Liverpool are favourites anymore. I mean, we don't have one fit centre back. Um, Hopefully, the next centre back partnership we see is Hendo and Millie. Just ushering the defense of Liverpool. But that actually, I think, does put us. I think Spurs or City both are more likely now to make a run for the title, unless like Klopp does something crazy, and Nat Phillips turns out to be like Virgil van Dijk. But other than that, City's performance was really good. The first half was incredible to watch. First 5-10 minutes, we should have been up more than 2 goals. But in the end, like the second half was just bad. Like neither City nor Liverpool
Yeah.
performed to their potential. Whatever, everyone's pegging it down to fatigue of players and the
It
fixture
also like
congestion.
the rain. Like they just couldn't control the ball. Like there were so many instances where they were like in on goal and nobody could just control the ball. I couldn't understand what was going
Firmino
on in the
can't
game of
control the ball
California.
regardless of weather conditions.
But yeah, anyway, continue and talk about like just the form. They had a phenomenal Champions League game, and Jota looked like world beater in that game. What do you guys make of his inclusion in the team and how he's like fit in and all of that?
Yeah, so I guess Carragher was like talking on like Talk Sport or something, and he was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Klopp goes back to the 4-3-3 after playing the 4-2-3-1 with all four of them. And, I mean, I can definitely see it. I don't think it's necessarily because of a poor performance. I think just the overall cohesion of the team and balance of the team is probably a little bit better with the 4-3-3. While I will obviously admit that, I was obviously very, very excited to see that lineup that was announced for the City game. I mean, yeah, the injuries are obviously going to be tough. Like, because now Gomez, I guess they're saying probably not out for the season necessarily, but a good portion of it. Trent will be out for what, couple 3-4 weeks. Van Dijk's obviously done for the year. Hopefully, we played Leicester after the international break, which will obviously be a big game. Hopefully, we have Fabinho back, so it's Fabinho Matip. But I mean, it's going to be tough to say. The Champions League performance was obviously really, really good to see, especially against a big team in the group away from home. But I mean, yeah, I guess it's just about setting expectations now would be the biggest thing for me. Like, yeah, obviously I still think we're definitely better than a lot of teams in the league, but it's going to be interesting to see how we cope with all of these injuries at the back. And then also I'm very curious to see if we're assuming he doesn't continue with the playing all four of them up front, what he does with Jota and Firmino. He's multiple times said, that Firmino brings a lot more to the team, the usual shit he says, but like there is obviously, even aside from the goal scoring, I mean, if you watch football, you can just tell looking at him that he isn't the player he was. So I wonder what he'll do there post international break in terms of that. So I mean, yeah, I think City's like with their depth and once Aguero comes back and stuff, I still think they're probably favorite over Liverpool, all things said and done. Spurs is tight. I don't know yet about the Spurs team, but I mean, right now it's more just kind of like hoping for the best and taking it one game at a time.
But going
And one
back
more.
to the okay,
Go
go
ahead.
on. No, I was just gonna ask about Firmino. Like, I was just wondering if do you think like he can ever come back to his form, like previous form? Because
Yeah,
he's
because
almost what 30 again.
but the thing is, like, for him, like, the worry even last year, the worry was like there was still a decline in form, but it's not like necessarily his decline in form isn't necessarily, like I said, goals, right? He was never like a
Yeah,
guy who
it's
was scoring at
chemistry.
Salah's or Mane's rate. It was just his overall contribution to the team. So, which in my opinion should be easier to come back than just him bagging a bunch of goals. So I hope so, but you can say in the last 2 seasons it's just been a steady decline. So I mean, who knows? Like,
Any important games, any like games against big teams, like how he reverted back to Henderson, Milner, and Wijnaldum in the big Champions League games. I think similarly he's going to revert back to Firmino in all those big games. He's going to start that front three because you know who he trusts. And while this is happening, he's going to build up that trust with Jota and whoever he wants. But this season, in all the big games, I think Firmino is going to start every single one of them with or without Jota.
And I think the injuries like sort of force Jota into the
also
uh,
true.
a little bit more because they have to be a little bit more offensive. They have to, sacrifice that Fabinho who has to now play centre back for the foreseeable future, right? Like there's absolutely no other option. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I think we were talking about City, but you also mentioned Spurs, Apur. I think Spurs had two very interesting games where they absolutely just snatched victory, from West Brom, and even the game before that, if I'm not wrong, it was against
Brighton.
Brighton, where they were like, it was quite an even game. I actually
Yeah,
was
Brighton played.
looking at
I
that.
watched that. Brighton played very well.
Yeah, exactly. Brighton looked like Brighton created a lot of chances, were like really, really potent. And somehow Spurs just managed to steal a victory right at the end, like great, great play from them. And they had those moments in every single game, which is kind of a signature of Mourinho, where he just grinds out a game and he manages to get his offensive players to do a, a few moments of craft or a few moments of like out of the ordinary skill, which like breaks open a team. And even the Kane goal was like just a good cross, good play before that. What do we make of them as title
I
contenders?
think
I'll go to the
I
Arsenal fan.
think I think Spurs have even under Pochettino, they had that habit, at least in the 17-18 season, they had that habit of always like grinding out results, like you said, like getting late winners and stuff. And they've managed to keep those players together more or less, and they've added to that in Gareth Bale, who actually scored the winner against Brighton. So if they can manage to like still retain that habit, I think they can probably challenge. But something that I was looking at that applies to all these big teams, including Liverpool, City, all the Champions League and the Europa League teams, is in these next 6 weeks, there are going to be 12
Fixture congestion.
fixtures.
Yeah, it's
12 in
ridiculous.
6 weeks. That's ridiculous. For City and
Oh
us,
my
is
God.
13 because they play in like Carabao Cup as well. 13 fixtures in like 6 weeks is ridiculous. And I thought this entire international friendlies and stuff was so unnecessary. So yeah, I mean, anything can happen from now to like Jan, I would say.
No, and before that, like everyone would look forward to December as being, the where the fixtures are just so congested. We've already had a December in
Exactly.
November and October, and this is just going to be even worse. And players are just falling apart. And before that, like Mourinho had to field a Spurs team in Carabao Cup, Europa League, and Premier League within like 6 days.
Four
Yeah.
And
games in 8 days. That
Yeah,
was
Cruz
yeah,
ridiculous.
some crazy shit like that.
Cruz
So
just
it's
said as well. Like
Even De
UEFA and
Bruyne.
FIFA, they're just like they don't give a shit about us as players.
Yeah,
Hey,
they're
do you
like
want
we're
to see
guinea
what
pigs.
Cruz said about the worst 12 million
So
midfielder
stupid.
in the history of fancy Premier League? Stupid mask. No, but anyway, yeah, I think the fixture congestion and like Abu was saying, all the players are already falling apart, and we can see so many teams have so many injuries. Like even at United, like Shaw and I mean Shaw's always injured, I guess, but like Tellez, COVID, all of these like unforeseen circumstances, and these things just don't happen in a regular season, really affect the outcome. I think are going to affect the outcome. And like we always talk about how that there are teams that don't have a lot of players on international duty, and these 2 weeks are like invaluable to them. And I think that
Exactly.
sort of leads into our next two teams. And we obviously have Leicester, and I think Leicester are probably the team, and Chelsea. But I want to talk about Villa and Southampton, just talking about the openness of the season, and I just want to put those two in there. Just talk about the way those two have played. And I think Southampton had a little bit of a slow start, but they've really killed they've won 5 of their last 6, which is just outstanding. And that loss, I mean, and that not win was a draw away at Chelsea with the 3-3. So they find themselves fourth on the table with 16 points. And Villa, an incredibly impressive performance against Arsenal this past weekend. After a couple of losses, they had a disappointing loss against Southampton and like a bad loss against Leeds, but they looked incredible against Arsenal this week. And what do you make of them, Anitesh? What do you make of that game? And
I mean,
talk
it
about
just
those two
goes to
teams.
show, like the two teams that you talked about, Southampton and Aston Villa, it just goes to show that if you just have a good run of form, like you can just go up the table so quickly. So I feel like that's something important for like these teams is to like maintain that sort of don't drop your level too much. Try to be consistent and you can like easily avoid relegation or even for the upper teams get into like the top four. This season is going to be like very congested everywhere. But speaking of Aston Villa, they were just incredible. I mean, I saw them do that to Liverpool and I shat on Liverpool. I had a good time on WhatsApp, but seeing them do that to Arsenal, I was just like, God damn, they were just so much better, so much more energetic. And yeah, I mean, their patterns of play, like every player seems to know what to do. I mean, you like I don't know which goal it was. I think it was the first one. Where Barkley was just like waiting for like an overlapping run, and
That was the
it was
first
just
one,
like
yeah.
yeah, they just like knew what to do, when to go, when not to go. They would drop back, and then Ollie Watkins, he just manages to win like literally every ball in the air, and he was incredible. His finishes were incredible, and I don't know, they've been a little inconsistent, but if they manage to again, like get a good run of form, get good 2-3 wins on the row in a run.
That seems to be like a very confidence based, and I feel like as a game progresses, they get a little bit better defensively, and their offense is now like carrying them to the point where they're actually going into those end games with like good like leads or good results on their side. So I really see like as long as they can keep like clean sheets, they can go really far. I'd say they could be as good as Wolves, if not even better than they were last year. And like Grealish is a special player, like he is
Yeah.
literally we were talking about him, and the player we all said he was Messi, like he's like a tall, strong Messi. Like that's exactly what he's playing like in terms of his creativity on the field. He's
Yeah,
like
I mean, even
shooting at will. He's like the midfielder who's taken the most shots in the league so
like
far. And he's played
compared to
one game less
last
than
season, even he
yeah, I
seems
mean he
so much more mature on the ball as well. Like
yeah,
every
and I
every
also
time he gets the ball, something happens.
but also Barkley and Watkins make
Yeah.
Yeah,
Grealish
I've helped them a lot. Yeah.
significantly better because it was Wesley, like half-legged Wesley. One leg is bigger than the other, like Wesley, and like Hourahan, who hasn't been able to get a sniff in playing. So it was like not really his fault. He couldn't do much. But and kudos to the manager, like from a relegation team, like from a team that everybody would have had as one of
Yeah.
their favorites to get relegated. He's gone and signed the right players in the right positions. Matt Cash has been a really, really good signing for them. He's been fantastic as right back. They've got Konsa playing more
And it's
regularly, like a
it's a good story as well. His dad used to be a steward for Aston Villa, I think, and he was
yeah.
a lifelong Aston Villa fan, and now he's like managing them and
Yeah,
managed
and I
to.
mean, and
So yeah,
Martinez said that no one would believe that it's a move up in his career, but maybe he was right, you
Uh,
know?
yeah,
What are your
honestly,
thoughts on that, NMPH?
he seems like a visionary, bro. We should have probably kept him, but
I
what to
mean,
do? Thought 20 million was good enough for them.
yeah, I mean, and Grealish, so that's what, like, his dad was a steward at Villa, but his dad had Alzheimer's, so he never knew his son was manager. His dad died of COVID recently.
Oh, right,
But
right. Yeah.
he
So
he
sad.
never knew that his son was manager of Villa, which I mean, but still, like he used to work in the stewards when he was like a young boy, and even Grealish is like a Villa fan. So imagine if they have like the best season ever, under these
Yeah, it
two,
means so much more to them.
to the fans, and especially to these two, it'll be an incredible achievement. So, also Southampton, I think just a quick shout out to Southampton, like Ings was on fire, and they proved this week that even without Ings, they're able to put out a good performance. Like Walcott is having
Yeah,
a,
Walcott's
a
looking good.
renewal. Yeah, 3 assists or 2 assists.
But
He
what's
looks
been
like
awesome is
something.
that Southampton have been so good defensively.
Hmm.
Last 3 out of the last 5 games, they've kept a clean sheet, and Vestergaard is just
Yeah,
like looking like a
Vestergaard's like Van
different
Dijk.
player. Yeah, he's so good. Like before, he would just be some tall guy, like just there. Now he's doing so much more than that. He's controlling that defense. He's setting the line. He's the leader from, just pushing everyone, and it's incredible to watch because I think the best defense is going to win the league this year. It always is like that, but I think this year it's even more because sometimes you can just score your goals through winning and whatever. But this year, I just think like Southampton and Villa both have conceded only, I want to say like 9 or 10 goals in whatever, which is like joint best. And that just shows because of the results, like how they've been doing.
Okay, quick, too early predictions. Like too early in the sense like TOO, not two, but actually also to predict where both of these will finish at the end of the season, just based on like absolutely nothing but what you've seen so
Aston Villa top half would be incredible after how they had to fight for relegation. I think like anywhere
I
between 7th to 10th would be incredible for them. And I think that's where they are going to finish.
I would be more comfortable judging Aston Villa than Southampton because of the signings they've made and everything. So I would say I think uh we can get a European spot, I think. Maybe sixth if like one of those FA Cup moments
Oh, dude,
happen.
sixth is Villa's like favorite spot, like under Martin O'Neill, their highest ever finish was both sixths. So that was like why they fired him because they're like, you can only take us to sixth, and they've done really well since. So it was a good foresight. But I, I would, I, okay, just pick which one do you think will finish higher between the two of them? Let's put it that way.
Aston Villa. Aston Villa for me.
Villa over. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna say Southampton though. So let's.
I
I don't know.
mean, shout out to their owners and stuff as well because I mean last season they were having a really bad patch and they still stuck with this
Stuck
manager
with
and now
Pochettino.
they're reaping the rewards.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be close between the two of them. I think it's a flip of a coin, but I don't know. I just think like that defense thing is really interesting. I think that's definitely a good shot. It'll be something interesting to watch. But we'll maybe quickly talk about Leicester. Like, what do you guys make of Leicester's? Um, they
They're
had
winning the
a
league. They're
really
Did
winning
you
the
hear
league.
what
disappointing
Bennett Rogers
end
said
to the season.
What did he say?
about the British manager thing? Someone said something and he's like, maybe I won't be able to, maybe something about him being a British manager. We're like, just something
Sounds like
about him.
something that stupid Frank Lampard would say.
You hate Lampard now, right? Because
No,
he got
no. Lampard said that
Lampard said
I'm getting all this stick just because I'm the only English manager in the league. That's literally what he said 2 weeks ago or
What
something.
about Roy, bro? What about his dad, Roy?
And God no.
Lampard's delusional.
No, but anyway,
But I don't know. But Leicester, it's good because they're getting Madison back. Ricardo Pereira is supposed to be back after the international break, and they've been looking good throughout since the start. But it's with Brendan Rodgers, it's always how they finish, right? So I think they're going to be like up there, challenging for the top 2, 3 at least till December. Because I don't think their Europa League is going to affect them as of yet. It'll only start affecting them in November and all because of their fixtures. They've, I think, won 3 out of 3. So they don't have so much pressure to put out a good team every fixture. So I think till December, they're like the team to look out for. And that's why I think the game against Liverpool is going to be even bigger for them than it is for Liverpool. Because if they beat them, they set like a mark for themselves and to the league. Like, we're here, we're challenging
Well,
for the.
well, last year was a very similar thing, and then Liverpool put up like
Crushed
arguably
them.
one of their best performances of
Yeah.
all year, which I don't think is going to happen again, obviously. But I think Leicester, like, I've been lucky enough, so I bet them all 3 Europa League games and they've won all 3. But they like, even like Madison, like, yeah, he's had injuries, but also there's been times where he's completely fit. And I think tactically, Rogers, like, he's been going with like that 3-4-2-1, 1-2 type of combinations where I think he just doesn't start Madison if it's just 2 center mids who are kind of, meant to just kind of keep things moving along from the back to the front. But I mean, I completely agree. I think Leicester will definitely be up there because of the injuries that they've had, and they still managed to be, top of the table, top of the Europa League table. The additions that they've made with like Cengiz Under and like, whenever
Fofana.
Iheanacho needs to play, Fofana, like still haven't like, so no NDD, no Soyuncu, like no Madison, like, they still managed to get results back.
Yeah.
No Pereira, like, so for sure.
That was going to be my point, like they have good players and stuff, but their biggest asset, I think, is Brendan Rodgers. I mean, the way he's managed this entire injury crisis last season as well, like they got pretty unlucky towards the end. I think they're a Champions League team in Europa League. And that's basically what he said, after beating Bielsa, who the media has just been like, sucking up to so much. He was just like, he told the reporters after the match, he's like, because I'm a British manager, we probably got lucky. Because, yeah, I mean, they literally took leads to the cleaners, but I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves, at least.
For sure. But I think the finishing thing is definitely a big point because even last season, like, let alone like letting United finish above, they also like, Spurs crept up and all of that. So like, I think that's definitely something. Injuries, I'm sure, played their part, but that is something that definitely needs to be improved.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like Rogers, I think that choking, man, that is such a horrible tag that he has, right? And I mean, it's happened twice to him in his career now. So that's going to be something that he has to like work hard to get that monkey off of his back. So it'll be interesting to see how he finishes off this season, because that's like similar, like exactly what Utsav said. Like they had a similarly impressive start to last season, and they just couldn't cap it off with the type of finish that they would like. So I think moving on, we have the last two. Actually, let's just talk about Chelsea as well. I think the other team that has a British manager that isn't maybe getting the full as title contenders, that they maybe deserve on the back of like a few impressive results on the trot, especially talking about defenses and all of that. Chelsea have managed to keep a few clean sheets in a row. Mendy looks like a really, really
he broke that record.
He broke Czech's record.
Yeah.
Czech, who's the backup keeper on the squad, which is incredible anyway. But they look good. I mean, like he seemed to like figure out how to get the best out of them, even though they haven't had their full squad. Ziyech looks like a real find. He looks like one of those players that he looked like one of those players like who would need a little bit of time to settle down, but he's hit the ground running. Like he looks like an absolute star already, and he looks like one of those players that could really elevate the rest of his team to a level that all of those players could achieve themselves. So I wonder what you guys have made of Chelsea and where do you rank them as title contenders, since we've covered all of those teams.
Honestly, if they continue with this these recent defensive performances that they've had, I think they can challenge. But that's the thing. I'm not entirely sure if they can do it like throughout the season or not. But that was, I think, their biggest question, right? Everyone was questioning their defense, and lately they've sort of answered it. But let's see.
I don't know. For me, like when we were doing the top 4 predictions, I definitely put Chelsea ahead of United and Arsenal, and I still, believe that with all things said and done. But I don't know. In terms of like winning the league, I'm not a believer in that. They definitely, defense was the biggest thing for them to improve, which they did improve. Mendy, Thiago Silva was a good addition. Zuma's playing really well. Chilwell and whatnot, and maybe I'm just not a believer, but like I don't know, I just doesn't have that feel. Like if they were to have to go to Anfield or Etihad and win those games, which are the games you need to win to win the league, that I just could not see it happening.
Yeah, if you just take the squad into consideration, I think it's a definitely potentially like they have the potential to win the title, like convincingly that too, because they are stacked in the midfield for sure. Their attack looks incredible, and they've they've conceded only 10 goals so far. They've kept 3 or 4 clean sheets, and they've strengthened every possible place. They have like almost a new spine now. So, and I agree with Bala because these guys don't have that much experience, so they cannot get those results. Or we are assuming they cannot get those results in those big games. But potentially, like this team could dominate for the next 3-4 years if managed properly.
The other thing that I would say is, like we said, like there were 12, 13 fixtures the next 6 weeks. It's also about him rotating the squad and still finding the balance. Like it'll be interesting to see if he can do that. I think he has managed to do that to an extent, but I don't know.
He's kind of done
That
it
could be
through
another factor.
necessity now, right? Like he's done
Yeah.
that. He's found a way to use his entire squad, and that's another thing that I feel like I forgot to mention when we were talking about Leicester. I think Leicester have like a sneakily like big squad,
I was
compared to
thinking
the
the same
rest of.
exact thing about
Yeah, like
Leicester.
they have like a couple of players, like they have like Luke Thomas, all those like random players who are like just good players who can fit into like these positions. They've like missed Castagne, but Fuchs has just stepped in and like done a job for them. So similarly, Chelsea, like Abraham has like really stepped up. He's like done a good job, and like I think Werner's looked a little bit better actually in the games that Abraham has played. He's looked more like a
Yeah.
threat. He scored those 2 goals against Southampton when Abraham was on the field, and he's scored again this week. So I wonder what he's going to do when Pulisic is back, though. So that's going to be interesting to see how he manages him and his like
Well,
glass legs, as it
yeah. So
seems. So
I guess
as an
before
American,
that,
what's up? What are you
yeah.
thinking?
So I guess who did they just play? Palace? No,
They played Newcastle next, but they
no.
just
Who did
played
they just play?
They
Sheffield.
just played Sheffield. They won
Oh,
4-1.
right. So I guess before that game, or I think I was actually directly after that game, Lampard was talking about giving Werner a rest, and he wasn't. He obviously came on to replace Pulisic, so I think he's already, thinking about resting players and whatnot. Yeah, obviously, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but when Pulisic got injured while warming up, he like threw his like bib, and he was like visibly pissed off because he hasn't had any luck with that. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Havertz as well, because it seems like Ziyech just fitted in nicely. Werner, like when he plays alone, sometimes might be lacking, but like you said, performances have definitely improved. Havertz is just the final piece of that puzzle because initially it looked like Lampard was like playing him out on the right, not really sure what to make of him, but the depth, like you said, is really, really something that's going to come into hand. So it's just a question of seeing how he deals with it.
I think so that's the title contenders. So now we have
Best the rest.
the mid-table legends. Top four. Let's say, like, since we're not title contenders, and since there's only like a few title contenders, let's say United and Arsenal are top four contenders. So we have the two big clubs after their massively exciting 1-0 game. They both had interesting results this weekend. I thought United played slightly better. Maybe I think it was just more like individual, like just moments of individual play. I don't think the game was particularly impressive as a whole by United. I think Everton weren't as good as they've been all season. They're definitely missing Richarlison. I think Andre Gomez is another big miss. Sigurdsson just doesn't seem to fit the system as
Sigurdsson
well.
just sucks now. From
Yeah,
being
I
so good like 5 years ago, he's just like bad. He's like not a good player.
5 years is a long time, but yeah,
I
he's
know,
really bad
but
right now.
he's just like a passenger. So it wasn't like Everton were particularly impressive, but Bruno with a couple of goals. Rashford had a decent game, and Rashford is injured apparently, which is great news for United. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. But Arsenal again, poor performances. Willian looks really good, dude. I think after that 3 assist game in the first,
He
and
just
then
pulled a Mkhitaryan.
Marcus Sweat getting those 2 goals to start off his season. He looks like a lost lamb on the field. I don't know what he's been playing at. I'd rather lose playing Nikitia, honestly, Alitage, than playing Lacazette. I mean, I didn't watch the game before this. I watched a lot of the Villa game, but what do you make of the Arsenal performances, and what do you just make of the state of their seasons, respectively?
Yeah, the season's been going on. I've been like there's so much unbalance. And like I don't know, I was so optimistic after the end of last season, but I guess Arteta wants to like progress his team from a three back to a 4-3-3. And in that there's just so many problems because he clearly wanted a creative midfielder and Awa didn't get him. Um and that's like sort of the problem right now, right? Because we can't create any chances. And I mean that was a problem last season as well, but we basically relied on Aubameyang's brilliance to get us goals. But even that has like sort of dried out right
I
now
they,
because
they have like a real creative problem, right? It's not like they have
Yeah, I
players.
wish they had someone to solve that. That would be real.
you're talking like that guy is any good. He sucks. He's a dinosaur. Let's get that straight. He should just basically wear that suit, that Gunnersaurus suit, and do that thing.
But honestly,
That's all he's
Aniket,
good for.
Willian or Ozil, just let
Come
Ozil run around the field, do whatever he wants. Willian had like 40, some
I mean, I
24
agree with
passes in the second half, 22 were backwards. And like one was like barely a through ball and one was like sideways.
I
Like
mean,
he is,
you're
I don't
talking
know
about Ozil,
what's happened
but
there.
like we have a 72 million guy on the
Yeah,
bench as well,
I also
who
think
plays in the
he's
same position as Willian, which is what I don't understand. But I don't know. I definitely do trust Arteta, but lately he's been getting, at least for that Villa game, he definitely got
Do you
stuff
think
wrong.
he's trusting like his players too much? Like he doesn't want to mix it up?
I feel like he doesn't trust more than him trusting certain players. He doesn't trust other players to like do the job that he wants. So he's like stuck with a certain level that he thinks can get the job done, and Williams unfortunately one of them. But yeah, it just hasn't worked out. And the biggest problem is, like I was talking to you guys about passes into the final third, progressing into the final third through passes. And Liverpool, City, and Leeds are up there, and like Arsenal's like second last or something. So we haven't even been getting the ball into the box for like our strikers to do anything.
And the
And I
next, sorry, go on.
and I feel sorry for Lacazette because he was actually in a good run of form, and then he just gets benched, and then he comes back into the team, then he gets benched again, and that just screws with the rhythm as well. So I
He
mean,
should
these are
have made that commanding lead over Liverpool a little more commanding in that moment, but he couldn't put it in.
And the Arsenal's next three fixtures are also like so hard because these are those odd Premier League fixtures which you just don't want as a fan. They're
Like
playing Leeds away,
they've
then
had
Wolves at home, and then they're playing Spurs.
like we've lost four games. Two of them were like away to Liverpool and City. Okay, fine, but the other two are at home to like Leicester and
Leicester,
Villa.
yeah.
Those are the teams that we've been really struggling against. And
So
yeah, you'd
these three
like
games, like with Leeds, Wolves, and Spurs, they're like direct rivals. If you
Yeah.
exactly.
need to like
I
actually
mean,
get results.
you were talking about consistency earlier on and how, just going on a consistent run of form like Villa and Southampton seem to do just brings you so much higher in the table. And I think the past couple of years, that's exactly the opposite of what United and Arsenal do, right? They'll have a good performance, then they'll have two flat performances, then you'll get some hope. Maybe they'll have one, and they have three awful ones, and they just don't seem to be getting any rhythm in. And I mean, I feel bad for like Aubameyang because I feel like a lot of parallels were drawn just in terms of like Liverpool's attack. I feel like when they were trying to talking about Aubameyang playing on the left hand side and comparing that to like Mane and just saying, he can actually score more goals from the left hand side. And like while Liverpool don't have creative midfielders, those fullbacks just give
A lot of
our
balance. Yeah.
forwards so much, so many options. And your fullbacks like Tierney's fine, Bellerin's fine, but they're not going to be creating much. And then obviously in the midfield, I would say you guys also aren't like a City or a United where your creativity comes from the midfield either.
It's crazy because I mean, if you go back 3-4 years ago, we our midfield was packed with those sort of players like Ozil, Ramsey, Cazorla, and right now we don't even have one player like that. So that's like the biggest concern. And no matter you might have like a 20 goal, 30 goal striker like Oba, but if he doesn't get any services, it's really
Yeah,
not
like
gonna.
it seems like he has to do the creating on the left side for himself and
Yeah.
for others, and then he doesn't get anything. So he only has one goal from open play since the first game week.
So yeah,
So it's
it's
been
Fulham.
You also had Chamberlain as like that creative.
yeah. It's
He was
true.
very creative, yeah.
So you should
Setting
have
him
probably
up.
kept him happy.
I would.
Like that's
Yeah.
Wenger's fault. You should have
Ashwin, what do
used
you
him
make
like
of
Gerrard.
the opposite problem where you have Van der Beek, Bruno, Pogba, and then two of them are just benched?
Too many
Too
creative.
much.
Mata.
Yeah.
What about Mata?
Too many
Mata.
cooks in the kitchen.
Lingard.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Another number 10 in Lingard. So I think we have
Fred.
like Fred. But Fred has honestly been like one of the few bright spots of this season again. I think he's actually carried on his form from last season. When he's played in the right position, he's looked good this season. So the Arsenal game, he wasn't playing in his position. And Tej, don't get happy. He was playing like a stupid like 6. But I don't know, man. I think there's like a real problem with goals. Like Rashford and Bruno seem to be the only two people finding the back of the net, and
Penalty, so it's fine.
Huh?
they both were not penalty. But and he should have scored a hat trick, but he doesn't. He's not in the team for that, like he said. That's why he didn't claim the goal. Rashford, man, Rashford, like he's like saving hungry kids and all, but he claimed that goal. I don't think he touched
There was
it.
no way he touched that.
That's like
There's
a
absolutely no way.
little rat guy sometimes, but I don't know. I think that before we talk about anything, did you guys see that Demba Ba goal against United?
Oh, what is that defending?
Okay, what is that? What is that? Is that the worst defending you've ever seen? Like that's
honestly,
up there. Like that's up there. What? Like just explain that goal to me. Like
how
Even
can
the
the
other
late
goal,
in
coaches
they
the
weren't
not
game.
see
defending
that?
too
It
well
was
No,
late
either.
in
honestly,
the
how can the
game.
coaches not see that? The coaches like have a good view of everything, and they're just like sitting there and doing nothing.
It's late in the
Like not
game,
even.
so they had to make
Oh
sure
yeah.
everyone was up to push up.
because it was like I turned off. It was like 35 minutes or whatever, right? I just turned it off and went to sleep because I knew how the rest of the game was gonna go. I saw the replay. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, not only is he starting it from inside his own half, but he's technically still onside. Like
And it's also Demba Ba.
Yeah, like someone still caught up with him. That was the funniest
Demba
part.
Ba running through. Oh my God, it is. So
Okay, no, but I wanted to ask you about like Pogba, because there's been an entire debate about his
What's his
position and
best
stuff.
position?
But don't you think like it's not the position, it's the players around him? Because he's played on the left of a 3 at Juventus, he's played in a 2 for France, and he's always like been like such a world-class player. But it's been 4 years for United, and I don't think he's ever had even like half like a really good season. Maybe like a few games here and there, but he
Wait,
hasn't.
Ashwin, before you take that, I want to say something. So I feel like it's Pogba. It's not the players around him because Bruno just comes in and plays well. Whatever. I just feel like in Juventus, Pogba was nobody.
Not the main
He had
man.
to,
Yeah.
he had to make
Yeah, that's what I
a
mean by the
name for
players
himself.
around him.
No, it was because of his attitude. He needed to work hard, and he had to work hard to actually be in the squad and start. Similarly, in France, also, he's never been like the top dog or whatever. It was Griezmann, it was Mbappe. The limelight was never on him. And in United, it was just like all about him, and he thought he's bigger than everything. And I still think that he thinks like that, and that's why I think his performance have not been that good. And it's so
I
frustrating I'm sure as a United fan, because so many of them say the same thing, that he's so good for France, he was so good for Juventus,
no,
and
and like in
they
like
sometimes
12,
do think
15
that,
minutes for United, he's also pretty good.
yeah, but I
Like
just think that it's the player himself who's
I
just
mean
so
I agree
picky about
because
when he wants to play and not. Yeah,
I agree to a certain extent only because like he literally came out and said like I'm not interested in playing for this club anymore, I want to leave. So I don't know why they still kept him. Like there's one rule for Lukaku and Sanchez and another for Pogba, which is he keeps talking about,
yeah,
oh, I want players who play
oh,
for the badge. This guy
it's
literally came out and said I don't want to play for the badge, but he still kept him, which is what I don't understand.
and in
good
terms of
management from Ed Woodward.
Sorry,
exactly, like
yeah.
that's where the club is in like absolute shambles, right? Because like Pogba will do a couple of dabs, we'll get like 10 million for that. So he still has like that. I mean, he's like a good looking guy, like he has like a World Cup under him, like whatever, he still has that marketability, and he's still like talked about, and that seems to be far more important as a United manager. But I don't know. I think he just like the application is just so poor. But I wonder, what this next few games are going to hold. But we'll definitely come back next week to maybe talk about the games before them, since we're a Premier League pre-game. But that'll be all for this week, and stay safe and happy Deepavali and happy Diwali.
Deepavali.
Happy Deepavali from Borat.
Vorat.